Alright, then let's talk about the law of syllogism, which is also called the transitive property. And you remember the transitive property from Algebra 1, or algebra in general, right? Right? Anyway, so the law of syllogism uses multiple facts linked together like a chain. So we would say, given if P then Q, if Q then R, and the conclusion is therefore if P then R. So what happened here is we go from P to R, and we can actually cross out, or in a way skip, the Q, but that's only because the Q forms the link between the first argument and the second argument. If you really want to think about the word syllogism and what it means, is it comes from Greek, and the first part, syn, and you have syn in other words also, synthesis and things like that, means together, and the other part is logic. So we are taking pieces, putting them together, in a logical way. All right, let's look at our examples. First one, use deductive reasoning to determine a valid conclusion to the following statements. And we have two ways of using deductive reasoning. You have already learned about the law of detachment and now the law of syllogism. We are using the law of syllogism now to form our logical argument. If there are clouds in the sky, then it will rain. There are clouds in the sky, then it will rain. If it rains, then I might get wet. Since our second argument, it will rain, connects the two statements, that we can cross this out, and that forms the link, and we can come to our conclusion. Our conclusion is, therefore, if there are clouds in the sky, then I might get wet. And sounds about right too, doesn't it? Okay, let's look at our next example. Determine whether the argument is valid or invalid. If I live in Sterling, then I live in Virginia. If I live in Herndon, then I live in Virginia. Therefore, if I live in Sterling, then I live in Herndon. Let's look at our second statement here. I live in Virginia. And that one is also in the back of the second line here. So the statement, I live in Virginia, should be the link to our next line. And it's not, but it would be if, for example, we switch that around, and if we wrote, if I live in Virginia, I live in Herndon. But if I did that, then I would actually, again, create a converse and use that converse to base my argument off of. And if you remember, the converse doesn't always have to be true. Therefore, this argument is invalid. It is an invalid argument because it uses the converse, which is not necessarily true. Alright, that concludes today's lesson. For our summary, I want you to compare and contrast, using your own words, explain the difference between the law of detachment and the law of syllogism. Have fun, and I will see you in class.